This week we started talking about how to fix a run-on sentence, which is going to lead us into a very extensive unit on varied sentence structure. But we're starting with our first type of sentence with it, which is a compound sentence. Get rid of this. So we took a look at this sentence, and students had to identify what was wrong with it, and then we rewrote it in 3 different ways. The first way to fix it was just to break it into complete sentences. He was completely still, period. His fists were clenched. Another way to do that is to add a semicolon between the 2 sentences, and I've instructed students that this is my favorite punctuation mark. It's a way of showing a little bit more sophistication in writing, something a little different to try. And really all you're doing is connecting 2 sentences together with a semicolon. And then the third way is to make a fanboy or a comma conjunction in the middle of those 2 sentences. And we talked about how not all of our fanboys are appropriate for every situation. They have to kind of think about the meaning of the sentence. We've called them fanboys because they have the beginning letter F-A-N-B-O-Y-S. So it's really a mnemonic that takes the place of all of our coordinating conjunctions. And I have told them that if they go into high school English or to college, nobody's going to really know what a fanboy is. That's just our fun way of trying to help students remember it. So what we then took this to, and this is very similar to what student homework looked like on Wednesday night, was how to recognize if a sentence was a compound sentence or not. And we're specifically focusing on this idea of a comma conjunction. So our first step was just to identify where is the conjunction. And so students in class circled the conjunction, and then we looked at and could tell, is it going to be a compound sentence just by looking at it? We can tell that this is not because there's no comma there. If there's no comma, then we know right away it's not going to be a compound sentence. So then we're going to try and figure out, well, what kind of a sentence is it? So we go through our process. We get rid of our prepositional phrases. We identify our subject, he. He did what? He got. That's an action verb. We look at the other side. We have the word ran. That also is an action verb. So we can see that our compound part, because conjunctions are intended to combine 2 things together, and if it's not combining 2 sentences together, it's got to be joining something together. So in this sentence we have a compound verb. He got and ran. So if we're circling no here, indicating that it is not a compound sentence, then we have to tell what kind of compound part it is. So looking at our next sentence, the conjunction is and. We do see a comma there, which indicates that we might have a compound sentence, but we're not sure. In order to determine if there is a compound sentence, we would have to find a subject and a verb on both sides of the comma conjunction. So again, we're going to go through our process, getting rid of our prepositional phrases or infinitives, should we find them, and labeling our subject, we did what? We protect whom or what? We protect one another. So there's our direct object. Looking at the other side, we see we, that also is a subject. We draw what? We draw strength. And so by looking at this sentence, we see that we have the comma conjunction, and we do have a subject and a verb on this side and a subject and a verb on the other side. So this is a compound sentence. Looking at the next sentence. Bricks are crumbling in places and the front door is so swollen you have to push hard to get in. Our conjunction is and we look at that sentence and we see a comma and, which is a good indicator that we might have a compound sentence. So we go through our process, find the prepositional phrases in places. We also see that we've got some infinitives that we can get rid of. To push and to get. And then we can go find our subject. Bricks are crumbling. The door is, this time is a linking verb, and swollen is a predicate adjective because it's describing the door. And so when we look at this, we've got our comma conjunction, and we have a subject and a verb on both sides. So this also is a compound sentence. The next one, his buff arms and chest pressed against a bright orange polo shirt. We circle our conjunction and just by looking at this, we determine that it could not be a compound sentence because there is no comma there. So we can go ahead right now and circle that. And now we're going to look for anything we can get rid of. We said against a bright orange polo shirt is a prepositional phrase. So we look for our subject. We often want to confuse and say that his is a subject, but there's no such thing as a his. His is a modifier, and it describes the arms. So the arms is a subject. We see chest is a noun, it's also a subject. And pushed is our action verb. So when we look at this sentence, we can see that we have a compound, we've got our conjunction and it's connecting two subjects. So this would be a compound subject. And this is exactly how students had to complete their homework for the night. I'm going to try a different one just so that you can see. Let's see. Let's try this one. Every minute of the day and night, 20,000 tons of fresh water were sent rushing through the pipe, both to cool the beast and to tame it. In this one, we see that there are two conjunctions, and so there really should be two places for this. And on the student's homework tonight, it does have a space for both of these. So looking for our first conjunction, and we can tell right away that there's no comma there, so it is going to not be a compound sentence. And if we look at our next one, let's see, and again, and there is no comma and for this one, so we know it is not going to be a compound sentence either. So we're going to go through our process of finding a prepositional phrase. Of the day, and since we have this and here, we have to see, is there of the day and something else? It's of the day and night, of fresh water, through the pipes, and then we've got some infinitives. To cool and to tame. Now we don't actually have to go any farther to figure out what the type of sentence is here, because we can see that the and is between these two nouns that are at the end of our prepositional phrase. And thinking back to what do we call those nouns, they have a special job. They're called the object of a preposition. And so for the first conjunction, we have a compound object of a preposition. And if we look at our second one, what is the and coming between? We see it's coming between two infinitives. So in that case, we've got a compound infinitive. So a conjunction can make anything compound. It could be a compound adjective, compound verb, compound subject, or compound sentence. And so student homework was to continue this process, and it looks like there are a lot of directions up here, but this is exactly the same process that we went through in all of our sentences, and we did all 12 today in class as a practice and did the first one or two of the homework together, so that students should have had a pretty good idea of how to follow the process to find these out. Okay, so this is how we find compound sentences.